All right, geometry students, we're back and we're looking at the sine rule, or what other people call law of sines, me in particular. And there are two situations where we can find a missing side or missing angle using the sine rule. One is that we know two angles and one side, or we know two sides and one non-included angle. And the first situation we're going to look at today is the two sides with the non-included angle. I will make the two angles and one side video right after this one so that we can have that. And quick review, law of sines. Now this is for if we're trying to solve for a missing side, we put the side on top, which is the lowercase letter. As you see, A, B, and C are the lowercase letters, so we put those on top of the ratios, and then we put the sign of the big letters, which are the angles, in the denominator. So that's vitally important because it cuts down on the amount of work that you have to do. If you just put a little thought in ahead of time, and if you say, okay, I'm looking for a missing side, put the sides on top, and then in the next video you'll see we'll put the angles on top and solve for missing angles, and how it cuts down on your work a little bit. And then also just make sure you realize that the angle and the side that correspond to each other, they have the same letter and they're across from each other in the figure. They are opposite of each other. So make sure that you're aware of that and you're paying attention to that. And lastly, there are three ratios, but in order to have an equation, you only need two because there are only two sides of an equal sign. So don't feel like you have to fill in all of that information, only two ratios. And I'll show you what I mean. So here on example 1, we've got two angles and a side, so we're going to solve for the other side. And when I start off reading, I see that little a, side A, is 45 centimeters, and angle A is 97 degrees. So the way I work with that is I start off with the first ratio, and that is little a over sine of big A. And that's going to equal, well, if I'm solving for big B, I need the side little b, but I don't know anything about it. So that means that I'm solving for little b, and I know that that's over sine of 24 degrees. So there are my two ratios. I have an equation. Now it's just a little bit of algebra, and we can solve. So to isolate little b, it's nothing more than doing the inverse operation of multiplying by the sine of 24, and then we can cancel, or we factor that out, so those are gone, and then we have to follow suit by doing the exact same thing to the other side of the equation. My mouse will cooperate. And we're going to multiply by sine of 24 on the other side. So in order to find our answer, since b is isolated now, we're just going to type in sine of 24 times 45 divided by sine 97. And once we've done that, we find out that b equals 18.44 centimeters, and don't forget those units. Okay, so I know some of you are thinking, wow, that's a long time for that one problem. We did a little review, and that's really not that long. It's pretty short. So I'm going to scroll down my page and later in the notes for another example problem. And we see here on number 1, we'll blow it up just a little bit more. So when we look at number 1, let's identify the things that we have. So first off, we have side C, because it's across from angle C, which is the 24. We have angle A and we have angle B. Now there's a little bit of a problem here because we have none of the we have nothing paired up. We don't have big A, big B, big C, little c. But having just come off in a unit about angles and triangles, we know if we have the two angles inside of ABC that we can find the third one. So very quickly, we're just going to go through the process of finding angle C. All three angles are supplementary. 180 minus the quantity of 118 plus 22 equals 40. So therefore, we know that C is 40 degrees. So now we have a pair. We have little c, big C. And then inside of this, we're asked to find AC. Now, which letter is that? Well, it's the letter that wasn't used to make the name. So since you used A and C, the letter that it really is that it's little b. So we set up our function now. We set up our ratios. We're going to have b over sine of 22 is going to equal 24 over sine of 40. So there's our ratio. And now, in order to isolate b, same thing as we just did in the last problem, we need to somehow eliminate the sine of 22, and the only way to do that is with an inverse operation. We're going to multiply by sine of 22, and of course in algebra, what you do to one side you then have to do to the other. So we are left with b equals 24 divided by sine 40 times sine of 22. So we've just found out that b equals 13.99. So I hope this helped. Good luck with law of sines, and this is law of sines to find a missing side.